Today I'll be playing another game on the multi-card. It's the Ninja Commando. I'm pretty sure everybody's pretty familiar with this game if you are into the Neo Geo scene. It's one of ADK's creations, and I can't help but feel that it is a continuation of the Star Soldier, the Time Soldier series, because both of them follow very similar themes. But in this game, you have three characters to choose from. You have Joe, and then you have a ninja chick, and also a proper ninja. And what you're doing is chasing after a villain that's going through different time. And I believe all the time happen, all the missions happen on Earth, but you basically go to the prehistoric age, the different country, let alone different time. You got Japan, you got like this stage is in the middle of the Europe conflict, and then you also got China of all places. And the bosses in this is pretty memorable because they're large, they are loud, they're bright, and this is at an era when they are not afraid to use a lot of colors to emphasize that. So today I'll just play through like a couple of credits or a couple of lives, and we'll see how far we get. So basically, I think this guy makes a reappearance in World Heroes, but again, it's one of ADK's IP, so I'm not surprised. So yeah, Ryu is the ninja. Then you have Raya and Joe. And unlike many of the fighting games, and very much similar to a lot of the fighting games during that period, they also have super special moves that you pull off by doing half circle or quarter circle. And another neat thing is that they do have a bit of a text box for them to talk about what's happening, or a bit of an impression of what the character is going through. And the character also go through some damage, and they will start looking pretty awful when your life bar is a bit low. And the game actually allows you to take a couple of hits before you die, which is great, because often these type of top-down perspective games, you do lose a sense of depth, and that's when bullets hit you when you least expect it, and yeah, basically makes the game a little bit harder than it should be. And throughout the game, you also pick out some like scrolls, and the scrolls, they give you different. You need 3 of them to turn into an animal, a spirit animal, and that basically just gives you invulnerability and just plow down the whole game, the part of the stage. Food items is also available for you to take to replenish your health, and that's always a good thing to have. Not so much when you're playing against with another player, because basically you both be competing for the same food. And for Joe, he turns into a white tiger, and whether or not there's a pun on the fact that he's an albino is another probably up for debate. And another, all the characters, they have a chargeback move that you can use to annihilate the enemies, and which is great. Because a few well-timed hits with that, and then they're pretty much gone. And it also uses a bit of a scaling effect for some of the bosses and game mechanics. There's also a somersault button, which I don't really like myself, because it doesn't grant you invulnerability as well, and you can still get hit. I'd rather do the charging back move and just fry up the enemies. Interesting thing to know about the Neo Geo hardware is that it can only shrink sprites. It cannot actually make them bigger. So everything is at a larger scale that's been shrunk down. I believe the Super Nintendo can do it either way, but on a larger scale, the resolution at the probably cannot do a larger sprite manipulation, which the new Joe can do, but only from a shrinking point of view. Such games that use it to great effect would be something like Art of Fighting and Samurai Showdown, because that's pretty scale intensive, and so basically, yeah, the whole game just revolves around just dodging and shooting, and basically you're pretty safe to shoot everything that moves because there's no hostages to save or anything like that. And as you can see, the bullets, they do move at a weird sort of like not really slow but lingering speed, and that can catch some people out when they're having lateral movements. Yeah, got stabbed there, and that is the ultimate bad guy there, and your mission is basically just to stop them from messing up history. Hopefully there's some health here because I'm about to die. But yeah, this stage I always remember from the arcades as well, because it's really loud with the booming sounds, and yeah, the name of the game is to play defensively, because they take a lot of life off when they hit you. And forgot to mention, like, the special moves, like the one that like a smart bomb, they actually deplete some of your life, so best not to use that too often as well, and just rely on the regular charge up moves or the special moves. And it also grants you more points if you use those special moves, so it's good that they recognize that you know, enemies that's destroying harder moves, they grant you better points. I don't know whether or not they give you 1-up in this game, but yeah, so stuff like that, like when you're moving, you better to give yourself a little bit of room, so that the lateral movements don't get you. Ugh, that's pretty bad. I think the first boss is just around here, so yeah, which is pretty cool because they use a lot of like voice synthesis. So yeah, the somersault just gives you a false sense of security, because in effect it doesn't give you any sort of advantages at all. So I'll just try Raya, because I can't remember. Oops, fireball into that one. Yes, just bad memories of this guy. Yeah, so you can imagine like how frustrated it is to actually play against this guy in the arcades and actually not doing that well. Yes. Should really do more of the fireball moves that spin around. And a good application of the somersaults to collect the damn coins. As you can see, the coins give you a bit of bonus, so if you can outlast the boss, your coin will go a long way. Yeah, so that like the contemporary games, they will try to build a story as well, but in the heart of the whole game, it's basically just to get from A to B. And as you can see, now we are in the Egyptian zone, and I find it quite weird how they only do the voice synthesis for the Japanese stages, but not so much for the other country stages. Whether or not they don't have enough knowledge of like how the other country speaks is probably that is what limited their speech at that particular time. Oh, mummies, yeah. Can't have a video game without mummies now. Oh god. I wonder if that's just a Western generalization of Egyptian mummies as such. Whether or not, in fact, it's something to be scared of with mummies. Like, I believe that they probably do it just to honor the, say, if somebody is very dear to the person, they'll honor them by trying to embalm their body, so that if they do come back to life, that their body is well preserved. So if you can see the attention to detail is just pretty phenomenal for gaming in this period. And then they don't even spare animals as well, so that's pretty gruesome. Ooh, Thunderbolt. I'll try Ryu. It's also one of my more favorite game on my AES when I had this game on the home console, because yeah, it's just such an easy game to get into. My daughter likes this game too. She played it with her friend. Took them a while to understand the rationale behind dodging and firing at the same time. Most of the time when kids they start playing video games, they assume that they can only do one thing at one time, and it's probably quite accurate, because kids nowadays they are quite analytical, I suppose. They will check out how other people are playing the games first before applying what they know from the times before. But yeah, it's not as complicated as the games that they produce nowadays with the iOS and those touchscreen games which only allow you to do more or less just one action at one time. Back then, retro games, you have to do often like jump and fire at the same time while dodging enemies. And yeah, that's what makes retro games so memorable, because you have to learn the game to actually play the game, enjoy the game. I don't know whether or not to play the game well is something that most people want to strive for back in the time. They often just want to complete the game so that they can move on to the next one. But there are favorites, and that's where mastery of the game comes in. None more so prominent than maybe Street Fighter, because the better you are at the game, the more people you can fight off when you go to the arcades. Yeah, I'll do that in another day, because yeah, the Street Fighter stories, I think everybody has a common Street Fighter story, and I think often that is the time when people talk about, say, triumphs and certain victories that were done because the guy is picking up the other guys to throw them as weapons, which is pretty cool. Yeah, the Street Fighter stories, I think everybody has a common story about